Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
In alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulihi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa salam wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsani ila yawmiddin wa ba'd. Alhamdulillah, I would like to welcome you all to week 8 of the book that we're covering, Safinatun Naja, which is translated as the Ship of Salvation. And it is a basic primer in the fiqh of Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah. And so, alhamdulillah, we missed last week, but the week before, we covered the requirements of ghusl. The requirements of ghusl. All right, so what are the two requirements to make a ghusl?
What is your intentions, your niyah?
Okay. The niyah to do what?
To rid yourself of either ritual impurity or janaz. Is it janaba or janaza?
Janaba, yes. Yes, to make the niyah to remove yourself from hadath, which is minor impurities, such as urine, feces, and janaba is major impurities from like menstruation, postnatal bleeding, and ejaculation. Excuse me. All right, good. So what do we talk about last week? I'm sorry. I'm a little under the weather, but I didn't want to quit on y'all. No. All right, so there we discussed two things. So there's compulsory upon how many people? What is conditions? Who has to make ghusl? It becomes wajib.
You gotta be over reach puberty, right? Is that what you mean?
No. What are the 6 conditions required for one to make a ghusl?
Gotcha.
One
Gotcha.
has to have sexual intercourse of, the penetration, discharge, your menstrual cycle,
Yeah.
postpartum fluid. I'm sorry. But yeah.
You might want to sit this one out, Sister Zakaria.
I know, right? I'm good.
Are you feeling under the weather too?
Yeah, my kid's been sick, and so mommy's gonna catch it.
Yeah. Okay. Allahu yashfiq bi shifat and kamila. May Allah heal you with a complete and perfect healing. I mean,
whatever.
okay. So there are 6 things that require a person to make ghusl. The first one is not just penetration, but if the head of the penis inserts the vagina, even if there is no ejaculation, the person has to make ghusl. The discharge of semen is also one. The third one is the woman reaches her menses, postnatal bleeding, childbirth. Childbirth sometimes doesn't involve any bleeding, some cases, and also death. And when we say death, meaning that the person who died, the obligation for the ghusl becomes on the person who was living, because obviously a dead person can't wash themselves. All right, except for the martyrs on the battlefield. And I had a homework assignment, but I didn't complete it. The assignment was I was supposed to find out if someone dies from a heart attack, as we mentioned about like the hadith the Prophet ﷺ said, if someone dies from a sickness like drowning or a stomach ailment, then they are considered a shaheed. But they don't get the same thing as a person who dies on the battlefield. So a shaheed is one who is in actual battle or war, and they die on the battlefield. They are not washed or shrouded. They are buried as they are. But a person who might die from some type of sickness or ailment, they had the reward as a shaheed, but they still had to be washed and shrouded. And so the sister Aziza asked last week if someone has a heart attack. I didn't get the answer yet, but I'll have it inshallah before our next class. And I had something else. I can't remember what it was. Sister Zakaria, I'm pretty sure she, put the fire under me to. She won't let me get nothing down at all. You know, everybody else could be late and everything, but if I miss something, boy, they ready to kill me. What was it again, Sister Zakaria? If you don't mind.
It was about the I think it was what was it about the dish, right? I think you answered it already.
No, I'm talking about as far as my homework assignment. I had something else, I believe, and I thought I wrote it down, but I can't find it. Well, okay, we ain't gonna waste no time on that. All right. So I get a pass, right? Inshallah. Alhamdulillah.
Just for the day. Just for the day.
Just for the day. Okay. All right. Okay. So we reviewed all of that, mashallah. The compulsory acts are the intention and to wash the body to make sure that water reaches the parts of the body. And then there's the sunnah way to do it. And we discussed that at the class before. So anybody wants to run that down real quick, the sunnah way to perform the salat? I mean, the ghusl. I'm sorry. Now, I know you all have your books with you, so it's easy enough to read, but I'm trying to see if you could just do it from memory.
Inshallah. Let me get my bookie, ma'am. One moment.
Anybody else? Nobody know how to make ghusl according to the sunnah.
So
All
say
these Muslims are here.
that to do the Bismillah first,
Uh-huh.
then you begin to. Now I'm trying to do it from memory. I watched the video while I was traveling to the class.
Okay.
So I'm trying to memorize. So you do the Bismillah first, then you wash the private parts with, and you suggested like using a rag or using something to like cover your hand when you do it. Then
yeah, we use rags. You know, there's other people that don't. You know, we talking about
wash
us.
rag.
Yeah.
And I may be doing it incorrectly.
No offense to anybody that might be, you know, but I'm just saying.
Wudhu first, then like you do the wudhu actions, and then you pour water over the entire head and make sure it gets to the scalp and all of the roots. And then you wash your body right side 3 times, front and back, left side 3 times, front and back.
Yes.
And then recite, like there's a dua that you recite.
Yeah. Now there's another thing too, is a small thing, but if you were saying if you're in a tub of water, most of us use showers, but if you're in the water that's stagnant, you know, you wait till you get out and then you wash your feet separate, you know, after you do all that. But if you're in the running water, you do it all in one wop. All right. Okay, good. All right, any questions on that?
I have a question. When it comes to the when you do the wudu, you perform your whole wudu after you do your private parts, right? When you get to the head, is that when you get to the head part of the wudu, is that when you wash, do the soak it 3 times, or do you just do the wipe first and then go back and soak it 3 times?
Well, if you're doing the wudu according to the Shafi'i school, you're going to do it 3 times.
Right.
For some schools, when they do wudu, they might wipe over their head once.
Right, but when you're doing it in terms of the ghusl, is the head part the actual part where you soak your head 3 times, or do you?
Well, where water penetrates the scalp, yes.
Okay, so, all right.
Yeah.
So I'm doing it right.
And not necessarily like the end hair, but the scalp, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so we're going to get to the next section, which is the conditions or the shurut of the wudu. And just like I do every week, I got to figure out how to share the screen. Okay, I think I got it. Okay, someone else is trying to make friends. Okay. Should be submitted. All right.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How you doing, sis?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. How are you?
Okay, good. All right. So the conditions or the shurut of wudu, just as in the book. I don't know if you can see that good, but you know you have your book. So the first one is Islam. The second one is tamyiz, or the age of understanding. The third one is cleanliness from menstruation or postnatal bleeding. The fourth one is being free from that which prevents the water from reaching the skin. The fifth one is nothing should be upon the limb that will change the qualities of the water. Number 6 is knowledge of its wudu being obligatory. Number 7, it's to assume the fard obligatory acts as sunnah or recommended. And number 8 is using pure water. And 9 and 10 go together, which is entering the time of salat and continuity. Continuity. Is that, I don't know how to pronounce that word. Continuity. Yeah, continuity. Is that right?
Yes,
All right,
continuity.
so continuity means in Arabic is muwala, something that, you know, without any break in it. All right. Okay. For a person who constantly remains in the state of impurity. So we'll discuss these, inshallah, one by one. All right, any questions before we start?
No, ma'am.
Okay, good. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So the conditions or the shurut. All right, and so what is the word shurut? The condition or shart. What's the definition? Anybody remember?
Something that must be done I guess before something in order for it to be done in a valid manner.
Yeah, so there's certain actions that have to be, or a situation has to be in place before you can, you know, do these other things. And so is a shurut, or is it a proof of the actions itself? Meaning that if you make wudu for a salat, does that mean that you actually prayed the salat?
No.
No, you just met the conditions. Okay, good. And also, what is the other thing we mentioned about conditions? That if some of these, if you miss some of them, then the act or the thing that you do will be invalid. It will be invalid. Or one exception is, for instance, if you miss, let's say if you miss wudu, or you make wudu, you may have got to the end and you thought that you might have missed something and you wasn't sure. And in that event, you know, you can just go ahead and consider this complete. But if you miss something during it, and then you just have to go back to where you remember. Okay, you had a question, sis?
Yes. So if you're doing wudu and while you're doing it, you realize you did a portion of it out of order, do you have to start all over again?
Tartib is one of the sunnahs of it, but it's scholars say that it will still be legit, but you should do it in order. It will still be legit if you complete it.
Okay.
But it's important to just know what these things are. Okay. And so the second, the first thing, the condition for wudu is Islam. And so, of course, wudu is an act of worship, so it requires an intention. And intentions for non-Muslims are invalid. So, you know, we have situations where non-Muslims are interested in Islam. And, you know, there are people who do these things, but they still haven't become Muslim. You know, I'm pretty sure you all have heard about people who, you know, adopt spirituality. You know, they like all of these practices, or they might eat halal, but it really has no bearing if they're not Muslim. It really has no bearing if they're not Muslim. Did I stop my screen? Oh my God, come on. Okay, sorry about that. Let me get this back up. Okay, so Islam is a condition for the niyyah, So for a person to make a niyyah, they have to be Muslim. So if a person had the intention, even as a non-Muslim, it would be invalid. And the only exception would be a woman from Ahlul Kitab. So what do you think that means? A woman from Ahlul Kitab.
A woman of the book.
Yeah, that's what it means, a woman of the book. But what would be the exception for her?
Monotheism.
Huh?
Monotheism.
Yeah.
She,
So what I'm getting at, if a Muslim, a woman, Ahlul Kitab, is married to a Muslim man, although she is a Muslim, but for instance, say if they have intercourse, and a condition would be on her that she would purify herself from her menstrual cycle and postnatal bleeding, right? That she should do it. All right, and then Ahlul Kitab is a whole different story because women of the book are not the same thing as women who are not Muslim, right? And a person who is Ahlul Kitab is not somebody's girlfriend that goes to church and they was at the club the day before, So there's a whole nother discussion we have to have because you all know how we got, I get cases all the time, brother, man, the sister I'm that I'm dealing with. And so it's coded. When they say dealing with, they're already in a relationship with it. And I want to bring her to the dean. They living together, got a full life. And then he says, she's from the people of the book. No, she's not, bro. No, she's not. All right, go ahead, Sister Zachariah. You had a
how many?
question?
Yeah, how many conditions did you say it was to be considered Alul Kitab?
There's about 3. The one first, a woman has to be muhsinat. Muhsinat means that she was chaste, pure, or not ever known to show interest in a man. So chaste. The other one is being a virgin, and the other one is that she can be able to trace her lineage back to Prophet Isa alayhi salam. So with those conditions, many women who are non-Muslims, they don't meet the criteria. So that's a whole nother topic that can get a little touchy. But if brothers are doing those things, trying to invite them to Islam, that's a good thing. But a lot of times the intention is not pure. And as we mentioned here on this class, the Prophet ﷺ, he told us the hadith, innamal a'malu binniyat. The actions are only by intentions, and Imam Shafi'i said that the niyyah covers 70 chapters of fiqh, and 70, not exact number 70, but a lot of things start with the niyyah. If the niyyah is not pure, then the actions won't be pure as well, even if people try to make them pure and they never really had the pure niyyah. So, and just in these cases, we're talking people get married and it wasn't really for Allah, it was because they didn't want to commit the haram and all that stuff. Usually these things really take a turn, but I don't want to talk about that too deep, But yeah, those are the conditions. The woman is she's muhsin or muhsinat, a chaste woman from the people of the book, virgin, or she has a lineage through that religion. Okay. All right. The next condition is tamyiz, or the state that's before mukallaf. So mukallaf is the actual age or the state when the person becomes responsible for learning the obligatory knowledge of Islam, how to pray, how to fast, and also when we talk about Aqidah. Tamyiz is when the child can eat and drink and go to the bathroom, and when the child can receive hasanat. And so basically it's the age around maybe 4, 5, 6. They still have some responsibility, but there's not an obligation on them, right? So, and this indicates to us that learning knowledge starts young, So when they're younger, it's hard to get kids to concentrate and do things, but we should start showing them how to make wudhu, how to do these things, how to say Bismillah. And so when you ease them into the age where it becomes an obligation, it's an easy transition, So we don't just let our kids run around and then when they become age, you got to pray, you got to do this. And we never put any things in place for them to get ready, All right, and so Cleanliness from menstruation or postnatal bleeding, or from anything that breaks wudhu. Example, in the Shafi'i school, if you touch your private parts with your open palm, that will break your wudu, and I think it's in the other schools as well. And so that's a condition for a person to make wudu, right? If you whatever breaks it, like postnatal menstruation, anything that comes out from the back or the front, or examples like touching your private parts, these would be a condition where wudu has to be made. And in the Shafi school, it's a little strict. If a man touches his wife with his hand, with his open hand, then that breaks his wudu, even if he didn't, break any wudu, So if you follow in the Shafi school, if you make wudu or you're in wudu, just, use the backhand or something. I don't know. I remember I read a joke about somewhere there was a husband that wore gloves or something like that. Oh, you had a question, Sister Zakaria?
Yeah, it might be silly. So say like y'all, you know how like y'all men like to slap the women on the booty. Is that his voodoo be broken then? If he just like she in the kitchen, he just come in there to slap her on the butt. Is his voodoo broke then? I'm being for real.
Yeah. In the Shafi school, yes. In other schools, probably not. And that's where you would take a rukhsa. You'd be like, okay, in this very moment, I'm going to be Hanafi. No, I'm joking, but yeah, I mean, the Shafi school, you following it like that. Say it again.
It doesn't have to be skin to skin then, because if, like, say in Sister Zacharias' example, if the woman has her clothes on, then wouldn't the clothes serve as a barrier, or the skin to skin issue doesn't matter?
No, in this situation, it doesn't have to be skin to skin.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Cleanliness from menstruation or anything that breaks wudu. Touching touching your own private parts, or like I said in the Shafi school, touching your wife. All right. The next condition is that being free from that which prevents the water from reaching the skin, or any barrier such as clothing or wax. And so, yeah, for a person, a condition to make wudu is that a person, it has the water has to touch your skin, and things can't be on your skin that will prevent the water from reaching the skin, like wax or something else like that. The next thing is nothing should be upon the limb that will change the qualities of the water, meaning its taste, smell, or color, such as grease or body lotions. So if anything you have on your body, some type of color or some dye or anything, I'm not sure if henna applies to this, but it most likely it does. We'll have to find out. Then, those things have to be removed for you to be able to fulfill the condition of wudu, right? Okay. Knowledge of its wudu being obligatory. Does somebody have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Back to the henna, you said that so when like you see it during Eid and things like that, a lot of women, that's when they wear it a lot of times. So their wudu is not valid with it on. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm talking about if it changed. I think at some point it starts fading or something. I don't even know henna applies. I'm not sure, but I know it's at some point it starts to. I'm not even sure. But sister, you had a question, Sister Aziza?
Yes, going back to the grease or body lotion. So does that mean we should not put lotion on?
No, you should.
Or can we assume that it absorbs in our skin by the time it's time to wake our?
Yeah, well, normally if you're putting lotion on, it's after wudu. But I'm talking about if you put it on to a point where, where water won't reach your skin, like, you know what I mean? So if a person like wears a lot of lotion, they should kind of clean that off first when they make wudu. But I think normally people who, after they use lotion or shea butter or whatever, after they make wudu. Is that correct, or?
Yeah, I do mine after, but I was just thinking in terms of if I have to go make wudu again.
No. You will only have to repeat your wudu is if you broke it. But I'm talking about it's got to be like, what we used to call it, when you got that sheen in your gleam. You know, when you, I don't know, some of y'all probably remember we used to wear like bergamot grease.
And Vaseline, like a whole lot.
Yeah, you know, your mom and them put it on real deep. You know, where you got that shiny glow. You know, it's like, you know, now when it's on thick like that, you know, you will have to kind of remove it before you can make wudu, because you could possibly not reach your skin. You know, and of course, after some time, you know, that stuff, your skin absorbs it. And so, like, say if you had to make another wudu, you just have to look and make sure if it's still like thick, or most, you know, like if you put that stuff on, your skin absorbs it, and your skin becomes dry after a while anyway, or it's not as moist, it's not as apparent on your skin. So as long as it's not something where you can feel, say how you could tell is like, say if you're making wudu and you can feel whatever the substance is when you're pouring water over it.
Mm-hmm.
You follow what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
if it's a film on it.
Gotcha.
You know, in that case, you will have to wipe the stuff off before you can make wudu. All right, is that clear?
Yes.
Okay, Sister Safiya, you had a question?
So I wanted to make a comment, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, regarding the henna. I would think that it would be more so if the henna is like applied and still on your hands and like still drying. I think that once it is absorbed, is that considered like it being already in your skin, like as the lotion would be absorbed in your skin?
Yeah, no, that's correct. So, like, I think like what you said first, when it's dripping off your hands and you make wudu, then that would change the quality of the water. But once it's on your skin, you know, I don't know how long henna lasts because I don't use it, but I know it lasts for. It just starts to fade after a while. Like, so when you do wudu over that, you're good. But if you're making wudu when it's still like where it will mix with the water, like if you just got, or like Sister Safiya said. Yeah. No, you were right on that, sis. Okay. All right, Sister Candace, you had a question?
Yes, that will also pertain to like eyeliner and nail polish, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, nail polish definitely is a barrier that you have to remove the nail polish because it would invalidate your wudu. You know, any kind of substance. Any substance that will keep you where the water doesn't reach your skin directly, you know. Okay. Okay. Knowledge of his wudu being obligatory. And so, for instance, if one doesn't know it's obligatory to make wudu, then they can't make an intention. And so, a person needs to know that before they can pray, they need to know that it's an obligation to make wudu. And of course, this would be in an instance where somebody just ignorant of it. And then not to assume the fard obligatory acts of sunnah recommended, same as above. Knowledge of what is wajib and sunnah. So we know that there are sunnah parts of the wudu and there's the fard parts. What are the fard parts of the wudu that you absolutely have to do?
Your hands up to your elbows, your head, your feet, your ankles.
Okay, so your face,
Yeah, your face, your head.
your hands up to the elbows, at least part of your head, and then your feet up to the ankles. Those four that you have to do, and you have to know that they are obligatory acts in the wudu. And then the sunnah part is everything else, you know. The sunnah part is all of the other things, all right? So a person has to know, for instance, if they need to know that their face is obligatory to wash and not believing that it's sunnah. If they don't know the difference, then their wudu would be invalid, right? Or if someone just kind of just does them all, you know, their wudu would be valid. Say if somebody just does a complete wudu and they might not know which part is fard, which part is sunnah, which part is mustahab, which part is all of those things, their wudu will still be valid, but they need to learn what's the obligatory parts. You had a question, Sister Zakaria?
Yeah, so say like you were just learning. You know how like many of us reverts, the first thing they teach us is how to wudu and make salah. We really don't understand the import. You know what I'm saying? We understand the importance, but we don't go into the rulings like we're doing right now until later on down the line. So when you're taught, they don't teach you the fard, they teach you the sunnah way to wudu off top. So we won't know. A lot of us in the beginning don't know the difference. So with you saying that it's invalid, I would assume by our intentions, our wudu would still be valid because of our intentions because we didn't know what we know
Right.
now.
Right, exactly. But then it goes back to like if a person you know, well, this is the whole thing that people teach, they're supposed to know what they're teaching. Like if someone is teaching you how to make wudu, they are supposed to tell you that, you know. So, and of course, we know we have people all over the place teaching stuff and shouldn't be teaching, right? Uh, but in that instance, if you've done all of those qualities, right, and you didn't know which one was fard, which one is sunnah, then your wudu will still be valid. The part would be is like to assume something is fard and it's not, and vice versa. And to you like to say, for instance, if you do the wudu and you know you don't do your face or you don't do your arms or you don't do your feet, well, these are obligatory acts, or you just thinking they just sunnah, it's okay, it's all right. No, that would make the wudu invalid. All right. And so that's important to learning what obligatory knowledge is, inshallah.
Can
Okay.
you repeat the obligatory ones one more time, please? I'm sorry. The face, the hands up to the wrist, part of the head, and your feet.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And then the other parts is to make the intention.
I thought it was the elbow.
What did she say?
I
The
said
head.
hands up to the wrist, but it's your
Oh, I
whole
meant to
arm.
the elbows, right? No.
Okay.
Yeah, the forward part is up to the elbows, but the sunnah part is to start with the wrist, and then you do from the wrist up to the elbows in a different order. So you're making an obligatory wudu. You would, you put water on your face one time, right? You from your hands to your elbows one time, part of your head or the head or part of the head, and your feet up to the ankles. That would be where you cover the obligations of wudu. And then everything else would, like we just covered earlier, you saying the Bismillah. You start with your right hand, your wrist, your whole hands, left hand, mouth in the water, nose, face, arms to the elbows, head, then ears, then feet. But
Okay.
it's important to know which one of those are obligatory and not, and ones are that are sunnah. You had a question, Sister Candace?
We're still talking about the obligatory or the sunnah way.
No, we were just making the difference between them,
Right.
And
Okay.
now, if a person, as we said, if a person does all of them and they don't know which one is obligatory and which one is sunnah, their wudu would be valid, right? Although they should learn it. But if one who assumes something is an obligation and it's not, or something that's not an obligation, they assume that it is, then their wudu would be invalid.
And we need to have, because I was reading about the proper way of brushing your teeth. Well, the miswak,
Miswak.
miswak, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's sooner though.
Yes. Yeah, it's sooner to do it on after wudu.
After wudu.
Mm-hmm. Or I think you could do it like
I
you
thought
can
you
do
supposed
it.
to do it during wudu.
Yeah, you can do it during wudu. But if you include it in the ritual, it's good.
Okay. But it's not obligated. It's not. You're not obligated to. Just the sooner. It's
Right,
just the
right.
sooner
If
way.
you don't,
Correct.
if you don't do it, there's no harm. But if you do it, then there's a reward.
I mean, of course, you should also brush your teeth, right?
Yeah,
I'm not trying to be
we living
funny,
in
but it
modern
just
times.
is there
Yeah.
a difference between is there a difference between just the routine of brushing your teeth and actually doing using the miswak? Is that like the same as brushing your teeth, or is it
Well,
different?
toothbrushing is something that's kind of more moderate. But this is a means to how you clean your teeth and make your breath fresh, But toothbrush is
Gotcha.
just a modern means. So as Muslims, we would do both, We would do both.
Understood. Thank
Yeah.
you, Shukran.
Okay. Okay. All right. Somebody else had a question?
Just to make sure that everything is clear. So if I was wanting to do my wudu for Salah, say like I was maybe something happened or something and I was short on my time and I wanted to make the Salah, I can wipe my the four parts and I would be okay to make my Salah and everything would still be valid.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you and the wudu, you at least have to do those parts. If you know for one reason or another you can't do it completely, you have to have those parts. They are obligatory. Yes.
And so, can you explain? I was reading something. Okay, so you know the how you said tayammum. Am I saying it right?
Tayammum. Uh-huh.
Tayammum, the earth. It was said like you can do it like if you're out and about, you can use the earth. You just wash your face, and it said just your face and your hands. Those are the only two parts, right?
Yes, we're
So,
gonna
but
cover
then
that
it
in the
says
next. Let's go ahead. I'm
go
sorry.
back. Oh, I was saying, then it says if you have to pray that way, you have to go back and make your salah again, make it up. Is that right?
We're gonna cover that in the next section.
Okay.
You're jumping the gun. We're gonna cover it in the next section though. Let me get through this inshallah. Okay. All right. The next part is pure water, or water that can purify, water that is tahor. And what's the other part of water that we talked about? We talked about two types.
Tahir and Najis.
No, with tahir and this one, tahor. So water that is pure, and then that's tahir, and then water that is purifying it is tahor. And so what's the difference between them? So water that is pure can be water like rose water, coconut water, right? But you can't use it for wudu. You can't use it for ghusl. So water that is tahor, that is pure and purifying, is water like rainwater and all the stuff that we mentioned in the class before the last one, like waters from rivers and stuff like that, lakes, as long as the taste, color, and smell doesn't change. Water that comes out of the sky and water that's in bodies, those are the waters that are pure and they are purifying. So you can use it for bath and stuff like that. All right. Okay. Somebody had a question?
Yes, I do.
Uh-huh.
If you use too much water, because I was seeing how they was saying like Prophet Muhammad peace be upon him used certain amounts of water. So if you go above that measurement, does that make it invalid?
No, we should just try to preserve water because water is precious, you know. And so the Prophet ﷺ used to use a minimum amount that might that would equal. He used to use an amount that might be equal to a cup like this, or even less. So that just showed you how much he preserved things, and you know that you don't need a lot of water. But we talked about the water as being abundant and little that you can use, you know. So kulatain, you know. So that's the minimum amount that you can use, which is like anything less than 40 gallons of water is considered a little bit of water. So that's way more than enough. That's way more than enough. But you can also use a very minimum amount. And we should also try to use as less water as possible without wasting. And do not let the water run while you're making wudu. Turn the valve on and off. All right? Don't just let the water run, you know. And then when you get water bills, then you'll understand how important that is. You know, but we shouldn't waste water in general anyway, inshallah. Right. Especially when you come to the, I gotta say this, especially when you come to the masjid. Go in there, you make wudu, you can put some in your palm, then turn the valve off. Then you can use that same amount, wipe your hands 3 times, right? Right? Get all in between that. Then turn the valve off or the sink, turn it back on, put water in your hand, do it 3 times, right? Turn the valve off, and then when you're ready to do your mouth, turn it back on, put water in your hand, turn it off each time. You know, don't just let the water run. You know how people, and it irks me because, you know, I'm responsible for making sure the water stays on at the masjid. So brothers come in, they've turned the valve all the way up and just, you know, and the wudu, I mean, yeah, they perform the wudu perfect. They perform it in order, but they let that like 2 or 3 gallons run just for this little time, you know? So, yeah. Okay, so then the next part is the entering of the time of the salat, and this is the 9th and 10th one together. Entering the time of the salat and continuity for a person who constantly remains in the state of impurity. And so points in 9 and 10 go together. So there's a rule in the Shafi'i school that you know, a condition for wudu is that the time of the prayer has entered already, right? And so that's when you should make the wudu, but that's not required. That's not it's not an obligation on you, but it's just like a principle. For instance, you know, since every act of wudu and intention is specific, I mean, for the act of worship, there's you need a specific intention. So if you're getting ready for Salat al-Dhuhr, the best thing to do would when the time comes in, you will make a wudu. But what if you had a wudu from earlier and you never broke it? Then you can still use that same wudu. As long as you don't do anything that would nullify the wudu, which we're going to talk about next week, then you can still use that same wudu, but you just have the intention. All right. So that's a rule in the Shafi'i school that for every act of worship, there's you know, a specific principle. So but here in this book, he's talking about, in the Arabic, it mentions the da'im al-hadath, or the person who always has hadath, who always breaks their wudu, or the one who always has an impurity, like, you know, people who have urine and bowel incontinence, you know, who can't hold their wudu because they might have something where a little urine leaks out, or someone who can't, you know, has a problem with flatulence, you know, where they're always passing gas and they can't hold it. This is for those kind of people that they should make the wudu at the time. They should make their wudu at the time of the salat so that they don't, you know, they don't run the risk of breaking the salat. But, you know, of course, it would be preferable if you were to make a wudu for every salat, that's cool, but it's not necessary as long as you don't nullify your previous wudu, right? And so this 9 and 10 covers those people who may not be able to hold a continuous wudu, because there are some people like that, you know. Okay, and so these 9 and 10 here in this book, they're not applicable for everyone, you know. And so there's a hadith where the companions, they would relate that they would, you know, hold their wudu for a number of salats. There was you probably heard this narration. It was from Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, that he used to say that for 40 years he used to pray the salat with the same wudu. Now, if you don't read this right, because I remember coming across some people and they was like, this is ridiculous. You know, how can you do that? So they didn't know the full thing of it. What they were saying is that when Imam Abu Hanifa, how they reached these spiritual stations, it was saying that he used to perform the night prayer and for Fajr, and he would have the same wudu for 40 years. So think about that. For a 40-year run, approximately 40 years, right? He would get up in the middle of the night, pray, do dhikr, and then he would pray Fajr with the same wudu. For 40 years, that was his tradition. And so I remember, you know, running across some people that was like, how can you believe stories like this? You know, you can't, who's going to pray salat with the same wudu for 40 years? That's not what it meant. So when people understand things literally without any thinking, they come across these things. And I had an incident one time, because I think this is the last slide. Let me see. I think this is the last slide. Yeah, that was it. So that's going to be the end of that. Let me just share this one story. So how important fiqh is in following your school. Did I? Yeah, so how important fiqh is. So I had a teacher one time, this is like the mid-90s, and I didn't know that he didn't really follow madhab at that time. And at that time, for me, madhabs were kind of new. It was just we had the Wahhabi influence was very heavy. So this one teacher, he was telling me about when he went to Indonesia one time, and it was time for the salat, and everybody but him went to make wudu because they were in Indonesia. They're the largest Muslim country in the world, and they're Shafi'i. So Shafi'is, we run the world. Don't hate, just get down. So that everybody was rushing go to make wudu because they understood in the Shafi'i school like it's preferable to make a separate wudu for each salat, even if you're already in wudu, because there's another hadith that said the person who makes wudu while they're in wudu, there's like 10 hasanat recorded for them. So you can still be in wudu and still make a fresh one. So that's what they used to do. Well, that's what they did as a custom. And he was the only one that didn't do it. And they were like, pestering him, like, yo, like, what's wrong with you? Why are you gonna make wudu? So he was like, I'm already in wudu, And so when these little like intricacies happen, this is why it's important to know fiqh rulings, because both of them were right. They probably there was a breakdown of communication somewhere. So, but as we mentioned earlier, if you have wudu and there was nothing that broke your wudu, which we're going to cover next week, if you didn't anything exit from your front or the back, falling asleep and lying down and stuff like that, then your wudu is still valid, right? And so you could use it for the next salat, or however you can carry the wudu, how long you can carry it. But if you make a wudu for each salat, that is also correct. But knowing these things in your school and following it, then when you see it in other schools how you maintain the harmony, right? So these things shouldn't cause any dissension. People just have to know what the rulings are in the school that they follow, and that's why it's important to follow a school and not to be so bigoted when you see something different. It doesn't mean necessarily that it's incorrect, And sometimes people get caught up in these things, and we shouldn't be caught up in them. If you see somebody praying, a different way, not like totally different, but these little things about like where you place your hands and when you move your finger, all of these are legitimate, and so none of them are wrong. It's only when people came and start saying that it has to be one particular way. And so many of like for Malikis, they pray what's called sadl. They pray with their hands to their side, right? And so someone who doesn't know about sadl and the rulings connected with it, or not knowing about the Maliki school, they would think that they're praying incorrectly, right? And I've seen this with my own eyes. I remember a brother came, this is years ago, he was praying sadl, and there was a brother who came up behind him and put his left arm and his right arm from behind on his stomach. Like, and so we were looking at this brother like, man, what's wrong with you, man? Like, like let the brother, and then the brother came and explained to him. And then, when people that don't know, then they make all of these things. Okay, that's not from the Sunnah to pray to the side. The Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he didn't do that. And Imam Malik, he only did that because he was beating, he couldn't lift his arms. And so all of these things are people just going way too far, right? And so, but knowing the things that are relied upon in your school and having it taught to you and following it, it makes you appreciate. It should make you appreciate when you see differences, and not that someone is doing something wrong, right? Where sometimes we see this happening. It's not wrong. As I mentioned with the case with this teacher I had before, he was right, and the people in Indonesia, they were also right, because they were following their school. Yeah, we okay. Well, alaikum salam, Sister Aziza. We're about to wrap up anyway. So they were following their school that is, making wudu at the time that the salat comes in. It is better, But if you have a wudu from previous and you didn't break it, you can also use that with the sheikh did. So it's important to know these intricate things, and and that's what makes you appreciate these fiqh rulings, because they are ways out for the worshiper, so people can have deeper understandings when these situations come up, And so, and one of the things, like for instance, say if you somewhere, the sister mentioned, and you got a 20-minute work break, right? And you only got a certain amount of time to make wudu. You got to get all that and eat your lunch and all that. So you go in the bathroom, you make, knowing what the fard parts of wudu, you make those, then you pray, and your prayer is good, and because your wudu is good, These are things that we should know, inshallah. So I'll take this last question before we finish. Sister Candace.
Yeah, speaking about work lunch breaks, um, I'm working on getting some accommodations, but it's likely that I won't be able to get certain accommodations. I'm at least trying to get an accommodation for a SAR for them to allow me to break off to make that prayer, since it's the most important one. But how is one to deal with that? I mean, I know I'm not really, in tune with how to make it up. And I remember when I first took my Shahada, I was like having to make them, I was doing them back to back with my understanding. So if I missed two, I would do those two before I went into the next. But then I became overwhelmed. So what do you have to say on that?
Well, first, we should have a legitimate excuse for missing our prayers or not making them on time. And work is not really not necessarily a legitimate excuse. And so having making accommodation, many workplaces, they actually have laws where they have to accommodate you. As long as I know in New Jersey, as long as it's not something that will I forget how they phrase it, but as long as it doesn't disrupt the business, right? They have to make accommodations, right? So, for instance, and it might be the same in Pennsylvania, but you have to check the laws. You know, if you because you have religious rights that they have to accommodate. As far as dress, prayer, anything, Jumu'ah, and a lot of people don't know it. They think it's because I got the job. Even if you don't have to be like most people won't say anything when they get the job, and then when they get the job, then they want to change it. No, it's not like they're not doing you a favor when they do it. They have to do it by law. You just have to know the law and have to tell them, listen, I have a prayer time. Now if you're in certain situations that they can't do it, like the nursing field, I think firefighters or something like that. But in any other place, if there's a time that you have to pray and you let them know and it's your religious right, they have to accommodate you by law, right? But Jumu'ah, if you can either, and there's things that you could do, like you could switch a day with somebody, or you could work an extra shift or whatever. But they have to make it allowable for you to attend Jumu'ah and things like that. When Ramadan comes, if you're working during iftar, they have to give you some time to break because this is part of your religious right. So as far as that, whatever job you're on, and most people are okay. Like, listen, I only need a few minutes, and like in a situation like yours, if you only have a little bit of time, just be like, I need 5 minutes. You go in there, you make your obligatory wudu, you do your salat, and then you're right back on the job. Nobody even miss you.
True.
Yeah,
Okay.
so those kind of things. So like, we shouldn't be making up salats for. There has to be a legitimate excuse, and work really isn't one of them. And then of course there's exceptions, depending on the situation in detail that we will have to talk about offline. Like, where you like say for somebody's a coal miner or an airline pilot or something. So there are things that they can do, because of the situation, right? And Allah knows best. All right, so that was the last question, right? I shouldn't say that because I feel like somebody else is going to ask a question if I say. All right, but if that's if we good, inshallah, we'll end there and we'll resume next week. Please forgive me for not covering. Well, we are about the hour mark anyway. But inshallah, we'll continue next week with the nullifiers of wudu, and then we'll talk a part about tayammum and some other parts, inshallah. But I really got to get ready to get on the road. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept this from us. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum.
Assalamu
Drive
alaikum
safely,
warahmatullahi
everyone.
wabarakatuh. Safe
Walaikum
travels.
salam rahmatullah.
Travel
Hope you
Shukran.
feel
safely.
better, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum, rahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Atuhu.